to everyone tuning in to this live harp lesson. My name is Zuzanna and I'm a harpist and harp teacher based in Edinburgh, Scotland. And this is another one of 3 live harp lessons that I'm giving every Friday here on Facebook. Let me know if you're on the other side, and I'm going to check that myself. I need to check from the other device because you're watching me from the front camera. So let me refresh Facebook and see how it's all showing up on your side. But if you also want to send a comment, that will be really appreciated. Let me know where are you tuning in from, how have you heard about me, if you want to say, and how are you doing today? That's always good to know. So it seems that we're live. I hope this will not become too loud. No, that's all fine. Okay. I'll keep that running. You can keep sending your comments and sending your likes and live comments. Today's topic is practice routine, and initially I was creating that thinking about how we're starting a new term of lessons, at least here in my harp studio, how we can have a lot of enthusiasm, we're starting something new, and how to use that enthusiasm to establish a routine that will support you when that enthusiasm may go away, which is natural. And I'm going to talk about this a bit more in a second, but for now I've got 3 pieces of news and I'll go to my notes to remember what they are exactly. So the first and most important is that bookings for the harp course close today. So if you want to study with me next term, today is the last chance to reserve your place. I've still got 1 remaining slot for a consultation lesson today. So if you would like to see how I teach, have a chat with me, see if that's the right fit, you can book your free non-obligation trial lesson through the link in the description of this Facebook Live. Second piece of news, as always, subscribers of my newsletter get a free PDF for each lesson, and today's lesson is no exception. If you want to download a worksheet where you can start creating your own practice routine, fill out a practice schedule that you can neatly print out and put somewhere visible, I'll be talking about that later, go to the link in the description and download your PDF. There will be still a few minutes for you to have a look at that, sign up and see the file. Last but not least, today is going to be the last live harp lesson in this format, but don't worry, the free tutorials will be coming. I will keep uploading them on Friday as pre-recorded videos. Hopefully that new format will mean that the topic and the advice, still the same advice, still the same tips, will be more concise and easier to digest and easier to follow. But today is quite a special one because I'm still here for you, so if you want to have a chat, ask me a question, I'll be here. This lesson will be by definition a bit more relaxed, maybe a bit longer than the future videos. So if you're watching that afterwards as a replay, you can just move forward to the part that interests you the most. As always, the replay is on my website and the link is also in the description. Okay, I can see someone sending likes, someone watching, so I hope everything is working on your side. Please let me know if you've got any troubles. That would be quite bad if for the last lesson we've gotten cut off or something like that happens. Oh, a last tiny piece of an announcement, which you'll probably see in the description. I think our neighbors are doing some building works and there might be some random noises in the background. So if there are, please forgive me. That's something that I can't do much about. Okay, so to the topic of today's live, about practice routine. As I said, it's a very good moment to establish a practice routine is when you're very energized, very enthusiastic. This usually happens when you, for example, get a new instrument and you're very keen to try it out, or you're starting a new term of lessons, or it might be effect of a New Year's resolution. And it's really great when you're very enthusiastic and motivated, and this is the right time for, in my opinion, to establish some kind of routine and habits that you will be able to follow later. Even if at the beginning of that period you will feel like you want to practice all the time, anytime, and there's no need for any sort of schedule because you just jump at the harp whenever you can. I think it's still important to try to think of what times feel best when you're playing, what times you could possibly stick on to on a regular regular basis, because naturally our motivation level goes in waves, and for practice to be efficient you need to be quite consistent. It's very important that you repeat those skills and you work on them every day. So it's important that you have some kind of practice schedule, practice habits, rituals that will help you carry on the days when you will not feel like spontaneously sitting at the harp. And I will talk about 3 steps to work towards creating that. So first step is creating the time for your practice. And very often beginners want to know how much should they practice. Not only beginners, to be honest. I think many musicians, even in conservatoires, would really like to know the answer to the question, how many hours should I practice every day? Anyway, in my view, the most important thing is consistency. Even if you do little, but every day, it will be a lot better than doing a big bunch of practice sessions over the weekend. Even if it's just 10 minutes, but done every day, in the right state of mind, in the right state of focus, that will eventually get you further than doing 2 hours on a Saturday every week or every other week. So when you're thinking about your practice time, try to think of something that will have the best chance to be carried on every day. It's very easy when you're enthusiastic to think, oh, I will definitely practice 2 hours every day and I will stick to it for at least a month or the whole term or the whole year. But the danger is that the first time when you happen to fail, and that can happen for many reasons, some of them outside of your control, when you fail, you will feel quite bad about having failed, and you will feel like you might fail again, and this kind of energy is not really going to help if you're going through a period of lower motivation. So I would say that it's much better to say that you will practice at least 10 minutes every day, because that's something which is much more easier to achieve. Even if towards the end of the day you will realize that you haven't practiced, you can still sit down and do even 5 minutes and maybe 5 minutes of tuning the harp, and you will be still able to mentally tick off that box that you've created, and that will give you a much better feeling, knowing that you have stick to your plan, that you have fulfilled your plan, and give you more motivation to come and be better next day. Also, the chances are that if you say that you're going to do at least 10 minutes, you will stay at the harp for a lot longer. But the most important thing is that you sit down there. And it's much easier to sit down thinking, oh, it's just 10 minutes, instead of thinking, oh, I was supposed to do this 2-hour practice. I don't really think I could sit at the harp for 2 hours, so how about I just go to sleep and try next day? And tomorrow is that mythical land where many great plans are living on and living on and living on. Okay, so that was about creating the time. You will find out more sub-steps of how to do that, starting small, thinking possibly of an activity that you can connect your practice to, something that you do every day anyway. For example, having breakfast, practicing before or after the breakfast, walking the dog if you have one, having a coffee break, watching the evening news. If you know the news is always at, 7 p.m, whatever time you watch it, you know that you need to start your practice at 6:45 at the latest to make it on time for the news. This is one really good thing to tie up your harp practice to your existing routine. Then finally, you remember me saying about those mental tics. There's nothing that prevents you to have actually a physical piece of paper where you tick off your practice sessions, and in the PDF you will actually find a spreadsheet which you can print out and fill out and put all your practice session there. If you allow me, I will just go quickly and actually grab that piece of paper, because I realized I haven't got it here, and I've got a nice colored version printed out here. Okay. So this is it. This is actually a whole folder of practice spreadsheets that I've kept for my students. With some of the younger ones, I give them a spreadsheet every week and we fill that out together. We say at what time they will practice on Monday. For example, on Wednesday, if they have ballet or something, we say, okay, here you will only do 10 minutes, but on Thursday you will do half an hour and you will practice on all your 3 pieces. You can use that to put your practice times. That will be also useful for the other members of the household to see when they should not disturb you. And here you can put the date when the week starts, and then tick off your boxes. As you can see, I have put 6 boxes, not 7, because I think everyone needs to have a day off. That's probably a topic for a whole another life, but there are 6 boxes here. If you want, you can tick off a 6th box as a bonus. If not, you can just stay with 6. That's already really good. So you will find that with the PDF for today's lesson. Let's carry on for now to the point number 2. We've talked about creating the time for practice. Now we are going to talk about creating the space for practice. So not many of us will have the luxury of a dedicated harp room. I'm very lucky to have a harp room for, it's been 3 weeks now that I've got a room where the space is completely dedicated to the harps. I think there was only one other period in my life for about a year where I had a room which was just for the harp and nothing else. And I admit that this is a luxury, but you don't have to have that in order to make your practice efficient. What is really important though is knowing what things do you need to have with you when you practice, and possibly keeping them all in one place. In the PDF you will find the list of things. You can also tick that off. So just to run through those essentials first, and most important, the music for the pieces you are working on right now. Even if you've memorized them, try to have that music handy. Then a music stand to put your music on, a pencil and eraser. It's quite handy to have one of those eraser cups that you can just put on any pencil, because then you've got just one item to remember about and not 2. If you're working on digital music like me, you may want to keep your tablet and the charger or whatever other device handy, but it's important that that charger is there. A tuning key and a tuner, a metronome possibly, a notebook, of course the harp, but that will come as a essential that we will do something else with. I'll tell you about that in a second. So if you have to share your practice space with other people in the house, it's quite important that you can access easily your essentials. And what I would recommend is to having some sort of a box, or for example a dedicated harp bag where you can put all your music, tuning key, pencil, notebook to write down notes from your practice. Have it all in one place so that you can pack it up easily after you have finished your practice session and free up the space for the rest of the household, but also so you can just grab it and start practice straight away, knowing that everything you need is in one place. This saves you time spent on looking for pencil sharpener. You can keep a few pencils which are sharpened in that bag, looking for your music, looking for the charger. If your plan was to practice for 15 minutes and you spend 15 minutes looking for all those items, then you can also feel that there's no point practicing anymore, or your practice will be distracted by you looking for all those things. So it's quite important that you have all your practice essentials in one place. This is also important even if you have a dedicated space like that. Sometimes it can get quite messy. You don't see that at the moment, but actually having just had moved the house, this space is quite untidy. So having everything in one place and having easy access to that is really important. And just looking sideways every now and then to see if you're putting any comments. If you've got any hacks or any experience with how those work or don't work for you, let me know, put a comment in there. I'll be curious to hear from you about that. And in a second I will also share some of my experiences with this. Third point, step number 3, after creating time, after creating space, we want to create our warm-up routine, and partially I will be talking about exercises that will physically warm up your body, but what I also mean is something that will serve you as a transition from whatever else you were doing before into the world of harp playing. This could be something that your practice warm-up routine will do. Some of us get relaxed and more focused when we're doing a set of exercises. It's important that those exercises are something you know really well. The point is not to sit down at your practice, in your practice room, and think, oh, what warm-up am I going to do today? The point is to have something that you're doing more or less in the same way every time, to warm up your fingers, something that you know works really well for you, something that you can remember to do at any time. And this kind of activity done on the harp can help you put your mind at ease, because this is something familiar, something that you don't need to think about anymore. And if you follow with that routine on an everyday basis, your brain will know that this is the signal that we're now in a different space, we're about to focus on harp playing. In another terms, it may be also something else that will serve that purpose of making that mental switch to the world of practice. It might be that you will make yourself a tea in your favorite cup, in your special practice cup. Some people I know lit up a candle when they are about to do something creative. That might be a special candle that you use just for that. This all works really fine. I would recommend that you still have a practice warm-up routine, because it's important to physically warm up your body. The point of all those rituals is to not become sidetracked by them and distracted by them. The point is not to spend time looking for the perfect candle, trying to decide which cup will be the perfect practice cup. You know what I mean. The point is to find something that will help you start playing within the few minutes of the time slot that you've decided will be your practice time. So try to decide what it would be, and next time when you practice, just have it ready. If your favorite cup has been taken by someone else, which I know is a huge grievance, have a backup cup, make yourself a cup of tea and just go. Try not to get too attached to those rituals. They are there to serve you, not for you to be addicted to them, if you see what I mean. Okay, I think that's all for the warm-up routine. If you're looking for ideas for creating your warm-up routine, something to physically warm you up before you play, you can head to the link in the PDF, check out Live Harp Lesson 11, where I was talking about a warm-up, and where you will find a printout of my warm-up, something that I do every day. Then you can also put your own exercises in there. It's important that it's all written down and in one place. At the beginning you will need to probably refer to that piece of music, a sheet of music, quite a bit, but after a while, especially if you follow through with your practice routine every day, you will memorize that and it will come to you very naturally. Okay, so these were the 3 steps: creating the time, creating the space, creating the warm-up routine or ritual. Now there is step number 4, which is an extra step. I called it Plan B, and I hope you will know where I'm heading to. This is a plan that you can put in place where the previous steps don't quite work. There will be days where you received difficult news, for example, or when something difficult happened, or where you just feel under the weather, or you don't feel in a mood to practice really. And while I think it's up to each one of us to find the balance, of course, if something really tragic happened, the point is not to push yourself to follow through with the harp practice just because you said you have to and you have to tick those boxes and so on. On some days it might be better for you to not practice, but if it's just something relatively mild but still feels very difficult to overcome, it just feels like you had maybe not so good practice session yesterday, or maybe you had not so good practice month and it seems that things are stalling and not moving forward and you're just not really motivated to come back, then these are some things that you could do, and I'm going to give you 2 ways to deal with that. So the first way is to try to think of some special treat that you will treat yourself to encourage yourself to play the harp. It's a lot better if that treat comes after playing the harp, not before, because there is a chance that you will get sidetracked by your treat. And here I'm going to tell you a story from my life. When I was a student in a music college, I didn't have my own instrument, so I had to travel, I had to walk every day to the college, sometimes a few times a day if I had a break between the classes and was coming back home, in order to practice and go into the practice room that was shared by other harpists. The good thing about that was that we had to think about schedule in advance. We were putting our times in the notebook, so you knew that if you miss your practice slot, then you're not going to be able to practice. So that was very good when you think about the step number one, creating the time. However, on some of those dark winter days in Poland, when it was rainy, windy, and in general really unpleasant, braving out the weather, going out to the college to practice was just feeling really not very appealing, and it was very easy to just skip that practice slot. But of course, if you're a music student, this is not what you're supposed to do. So the way I dealt with that was, at that time I was quite keen on chocolate, and what I did was I got rid of all the chocolate and all the sweets in my flat, and we had a little cupboard to store our music and other belongings, and that's where I put a few of my favorite sweets, a bar of chocolate, and some other things, whatever I was eating at that time. So the only way for me to get my dose of sugar was to go to the college, and while I was there I might as well practice. So that was my way. I didn't put it in the PDF because I think it falls under the category of guilty pleasures, and excessive intake of sugar is of course not very good for you. But if you can think about something else that can serve you as a special treat, maybe promise yourself that after you've done your 10 minutes of practice, you can have a nice relaxing bath in the evening, something maybe that you don't do very often. Maybe you can read a nice book, maybe you can buy a book that you really wanted to buy yourself for a long time. This also can serve as a good, award, something that you give to yourself when you've completed a certain streak of practice. Maybe if you've completed a week of practice, you're going to come up with something to treat yourself to. And again, this is all about finding the balance. The point is not to practice to get something in return, and the point is not for the harp to fuel some other sort of addiction to buying things or to eating unhealthy stuff and so on. This is just to help you when you've got a difficult day and it's really hard to sit down at the harp, because deep down I suppose you know that you will feel better after you've done your practice, not only because playing the harp itself helps you feel better, but also you will feel well after having done that you managed to overcome that difficulty and sit down at the harp and have done your practice. So that's one method to do that. And another one for those really, really bad days when even a prospect of having something nice to do afterwards is not really helpful. What you can do is have a list of things, of activities that you can do instead of playing the harp, but that will still bring you closer to the goal of becoming better, of improving your playing and your musicianship. So in the PDF you will find a list of things. It includes things like marking up your part, marking up your score, revising music theory, organizing your music, putting music into folders, watching an online tutorial or a concert. You can find 45 live harp lessons now, so you can watch one of them if that's what you've chosen to do. You can listen to recordings, you can look for new pieces to play, you can tune your harp. You should be doing that every day, but if you haven't done that for a while, you can tune your harp and still tick off your practice box. You can check your string supplies, you can plan on attending concerts online at the moment or other events. There are plenty of things that you can do, and you can add some more ideas to your list. Have that list somewhere handy, so you can refer to that when you're in the practice space, when you're ready to practice, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like much is going to come out of it. So these are the kind of activities that you can still use as something to move your playing forward, to improve, but which will help you on those days where you just really don't feel like playing. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to go back to the screen and read some of your comments, so let me just bring my laptop here. Hello to everyone who joined just now. I've got a comment from Penny. Hi Zuzanna, I have got stuck at grade 5 with my pieces, scales, sight reading, all okay, but I just can't get going with this. I've ended up where I can't motivate to sort them out. One piece is pretty good, but the other two, the boxa and the Renier, are moving forward so slowly. I'm embarrassed now, it's taking so long. Any ideas? So there's quite a lot to talk about here, Penny. So the first thing I would like to say is when you're going through the ABRSM or Trinity syllabus, grade 5, in my opinion, is coming after quite a bit of a gap between after grade 4, if you see what I mean. I think the difference of skills that are required to pass from grade 1 to 3, 4 is quite similar. Well, I think that grade 5 is taking you to a bit different level, and I think it's quite natural that things are taking slightly longer when you're working on the pieces from grade 5 syllabus, and it's not uncommon to take a bit longer to pass that exam. So that's one thing. Those pieces are more difficult, and it's natural that they will take more time. Not necessarily because all of them are, not necessarily because of being more technically difficult. I think there is also the musicality layer that is required to make them sound like proper pieces. So that's the first thing. There is nothing wrong with you if it takes slightly longer, but you're also mentioning that you're lacking motivation now to sort the pieces out, that the other pieces are moving forward so slowly that you're feeling embarrassed about that taking too long. So it's good that they are moving on. You're saying that they are moving slowly, but they are moving. I think it's different from a situation where you feel that you've stalled completely and have no progress. It's much better to have slow progress from week by week than trying to jump and learn a whole piece in 2 weeks and then forget it in 2 weeks again. So as long as things are moving forward, even if it's slow, I think it's still a good sign. If you're studying with a teacher, it's a good question to ask your teacher that. Do they think that things are moving too slowly, that you should be going through that faster? What do they think the problem might be? I have a bit too little information to help you on that. Another thing is that sometimes it can happen that we just hit a spot where it feels like nothing is moving forward, and sometimes it even feels that the pieces that you were able to play on one day were impossible to play on the next day, and that's something that can be really frustrating. If you're experiencing something like that, it's worth, well, first talking to your teacher, then trying to go back to the earlier stages, the very beginning of you learning the piece, take it hand separately, work on the difficult places, things like that, trying to put it apart and see what's happening in all those small little parts. Once you've done that, try putting it together again. But another thing that often helps is just putting a piece away for a week or two. Something that you've been working on for a long time might be making you feel bored, especially if you were moving relatively quickly through earlier pieces. So sometimes having a break from the piece, an intentional break, not just saying, oh, I don't want to practice that, maybe I won't practice that today, but deciding, okay, I'm not going to touch that piece at all for the next week. Sometimes when you come back to that, you will see that things have somehow clicked together in place, or you just feel you missed that piece and you feel more inclined to try it out again. So trying a combination of those. I hope this was helpful, Penny. If you got more questions, you can send me an email and tell me a bit more about your situation so I can help a bit better. But I hope that advice was helpful for you. I'm just checking my list to see if there was anything else. I thought I would also share with you some of my personal experience, because I realize I'm talking about using your enthusiasm to create your practice routine, following on the motivation that might be high, but I realize that the period that we are in right now, in the middle of coronavirus outbreak, is difficult for many people. And for many of us, it's difficult to even remember what our routine was, let alone following with it or sticking with any sort of plan. The nice thing is that I think Harp can help you settle, and maybe Harp can support your other routine. You remember how in part 1 I was talking about possibly trying to connect the Harp to some existing routine that you've got already, watching the news, having breakfast, something like that. Maybe playing the harp could also help you at that time to support your other habits, saying that, for example, you need to have a shower before you play the harp or something like that. So, those two can support each other depending on how difficult time you're going through. Second thing, much more personal, Penny says, thank you, you're very welcome, Penny. On a personal side, I have to say that I also find this period quite difficult. My my harp practice has been almost non-existent in the past weeks. It's difficult for me as a professional musician to sit down and practice without having any performance goal inside. In the past there were lots of things to practice. There was the perspective of having this concert or another concert, or just learning an orchestral part in case I need to play it. In the current situation, my view is quite pessimistic, and I find it hard to believe that we will be in any sort of performance before December 2020, if we're lucky. So I personally find it really difficult. It also didn't help that I was moving the house just before the pandemic, so all the routines that I might have had were thrown up in the air and gone. Oops, for the music stand. So I thought, well, I will share with you how to create a plan minimum for periods like that in your life. As I said in part 1, it's always better to have a small goal that you can tick off quite easily and feel happy about that and motivated to go on to the other day, than having big goals which might be just impossible to do at a time like that, where you will naturally feel rather low. So what my minimum plan will be for next week, and the way I will follow through my own 3 steps, would be creating the time. So finding 10-minute slot every day, fitting in my existing routine when I would practice. Usually I do that in the morning, so I'm going to fit some hard practice into that existing routine. What I will probably do is to follow the minimum plan and start from the plan B list of tuning my harps. That was a big goal that I kept somehow putting aside because of all the things that were happening. So that's definitely going to be one minimum goal on my list, tuning the harps. The second goal will be creating the space. You might not see that in the video right now, but actually there is quite a lot of stuff that still haven't been put on the shelves, partially because we don't have any more shelves to put things on. But the second goal would be definitely tidying up my practice space, so I feel more inclined to come in here not only at teaching times but also at other times. And last but not least, coming back and doing just a short warm-up routine, the exercises that I mentioned in Live 11. I think that will be quite a lot already for me to do. It's a very, very bare minimum, but I hope it will be achievable. So I hope seeing this example from me of how minimum your minimal plan can be, how very little you can put in your practice schedule, that will be something that will help you think in a bit different way of what you're achieving. Thinking that even if you're going really slowly through your pieces, you're still doing a great job of sitting down at the harp and managing to practice every day, and put yourself in a state of focus which helps you to get through. We kind of underestimate, I think, how much focus playing the harp requires to really, really practice and move pieces forward. This requires the kind of focus that is not something that we're used anymore in today's times. So congratulate yourself on that. Even if it was just 5 minutes, even if you managed to only revise half a bar, you are still doing a great job given the circumstances we are in. We're going to get through this, and you're all doing great, and I wish you all the best for your harp journey. Okay, some more people are tuning in. If you've just started watching the live, remember that you can always watch a replay later on my website. Let me know if you like this lesson, if you found this inspiring. I will know it was very long, but I hope you've managed to watch it until the very end. Share it with a friend if you've got someone who plays the harp and you think that it will be useful for them. And leave a comment to let me know that what I do makes sense and is useful for you. Okay, take care and see you all next week. Bye!